One of the energies that we came across in earlier today in the remote healing session was a very, very uncomfortable energy. Extremely uncomfortable, but extremely evolutionary. And that was the feeling, that was the thought form of remorse. Remorse is so uncomfortable. There's a place, I think, in the Ramayana where Sita asks Rama, you know, Sita's awareness goes to the stepmother who sent them out. What was that word? When they're sent away from the castle, they were sent away from their home. Vanquished, banished. That's a good word. Yeah, I'll use that word. Thank you, dear. Yeah, so Ram and his wife and his brother were banished from the castle. And who did it was this stepmother. And so she was kind of looking at this, kind of sending her awareness like remote viewing. She was remote viewing and looking at the stepmother and saying, Ram, what is the role of remorse? Because as soon as they left, the stepmother realized she'd made a mistake, but there was no going back at that point, especially when she, tried to put her own son in the throne. And he was like, "Are you kidding me? I will never do that." And like, yeah, he was really upset with her. Like she thought he was going to thank her. And she was like so surprised that her own son was very upset with her. And so she went into a period of grieving and mourning and remorse. And it lasted all the way during the time that Ram and his sister and brother were banished from their home in Ayodhya. All the time they were on their adventure. Now we know that Ram would not have taken out the demonic forces on earth if he hadn't been banished from that home. So he needed that. He needed her to do that. That was her job. But she looked at it from her own perspective, knowing that her motivations had been very, very small and felt remorseful about them. And Ram's reply to Sita's question was that the feeling of remorse itself is so painful that it is itself the atonement for the sin. So she atoned for a long time. The whole time they were gone, and she had to miss them because she really loved them, actually. The remorse, a lot of times when I come across like a really uncomfortable feeling, I think that it's probably something that needs to just be eliminated from the system. I've many times mentioned the clearing of discordant feelings, which are essentially emotional thought forms, right? But when I saw this remorse, I thought to myself, no, the remorse is beautiful in a way because it interacts with the ego or sense of self in such a way as to open the door for the transfiguration of the ego. Oh, interesting, isn't it? We've talked in previous webinars about humility, but I think if we can cultivate the remorse in a way that is graceful, like sometimes foods or herbs or natural products, if you take them too much, they're a poison. But if you take them just the right amount, they become a medicine, right? Like this is a thing. I was harvesting lily of the valley from my garden this morning, and a dear friend said, "Oh, you should be careful. I think they're toxic." So I did look it up, and it turns out it's toxic if you consume it in your mouth, but if you make it into oils or things, it's not. And one has to be sensitive to quantities. And I know I've got herbalists in the group tonight. We've got herbalists here too. So thank you for your input on that. I love you. Just on the level of consciousness, you don't have to write me and tell or anything, but I do love you, and I do appreciate you helping to hone my sensitivities to the plants, the living essence and the living presence in the plants, so that I'm using just the right amounts. Yeah, you put it in some aromatherapy or something, and it's absolutely beautiful. Remorse is the same way. Remorse can liberate you. It liberates you because it interacts directly with the ego. And the ego is the foundational part of ourselves that has to change in order for health to manifest at the surface. So the fountain of youth, I am surprised because I didn't see this in this morning's healing session, but the fountain of youth includes the fundamental of remorse. Knowing it's the fundamental of remorse combined with the wisdom and knowledge that the feeling of remorse is, is itself an atonement for mistakes made, failures, times that we hurt people. And it's interesting that one of the fundamentals that we started today's session with was forgiveness, remember? And the remorse and the forgiveness are almost like two sides of the same coin. A little bit. I see them standing together. Remorse and forgiveness standing side by side. Together, this combination is phenomenally potent. It is a medicine. It is a medicine that we direct with our awareness through the annals of the history of the soul to all the times and places where we hurt other people. Also to times and places where we hurt ourselves. And I'm just watching that medicine move through the noetic body, back in time to the early, to all the situations and circumstances where we came out not smelling like roses, not smelling like lily of the valley. All the times that we found ourselves overwhelmed. Usually, a lot of times, if a person makes a mistake that results in some trouble for somebody else, a lot of times it's not even intentional. But whether intentional or unintentional, whether justified or unjustified, whether resolved or unresolved, forgiveness and remorse as a unit are going into this field of consciousness and awareness, down into the form of the body and the living form of the body. So not only the physical form of the body, but like the living presence in the body, and addressing those moments that are really rough, really the roughest moments, the hardest moments. Especially in this lifetime. It's so common, isn't it? When people are teenagers, like teenagers haven't learned all the time. They haven't always learned where all the boundaries and limitations are. Forgiveness and remorse. The remorse opens the door for the sense of self to transfigure, to be transfigured. This is the important point, is that who we are as individuals, that's what changes. God doesn't change, we change. And what part of us changes? The foundation of us changes, because as our foundation changes, it resets the whole system for the development and the expression of health coming up to the surface, up to the physical body. It changes our thoughts and feelings. It changes how we address ourselves. This is basically, we're changing is how we address ourselves, how we dress ourselves. What kind of what kind of structure do we dress ourselves in, right? How do we define ourselves? One of the things that's coming up for me, which I think is so interesting at this point in the healing process, I'm looking at the time and I realize I haven't even started in on people's questions. So tomorrow for sure we'll do questions all the way through, but I'll do what I can with them. But anyway, the point is that the laws of nature in this creation on earth, within the history of humanity, the laws of nature uh, weren't able to support or uphold the combination of remorse and forgiveness in this way, the way they are now. They weren't in the past. They weren't able to, and now they are. It's a download. There was a time when those two factors were not comfortably able to work together, but they are now. So what we do is, from this present moment and from, more recent history, we'll say recent history, we're able to send that combination into the annals of history and affect life-supporting change for those individuals that created the foundation upon which we stand today. So this is a healing. This part of the healing is a gift to those individuals in the history of humanity who cared enough to devote their lives to spiritual practice, to devote their thoughts and their life force to developing the technologies that we're able to enjoy today, even though they were at a time where the laws of nature were harsher. They were harsher in the past. And we know that. We know, we can just look, just if you know anything about history and go back even a little ways, you see that times were more barbaric. Individuals rising up was a lot harder back then.